So the 68th annual Grammy Awards will go down in history for unforgettable performances, for tributes, impassioned speeches. And we're going to start with, speaking of which, Bad Bunny, who not only won Album of the Year, first Latin artist to do so, but also delivered probably last night's strongest remarks, blasting the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Yeah. Emily, what did you think of Bunny's big night?
Yeah, I mean, it was expected and hoped that he would win, but the Grammys do Grammy sometime. You never know what they're gonna do. So, and for me, this was such a monumental moment. Just seeing Bad Bunny take it in and process a solid 20 seconds and him having his head in his hands like that. I mean, this is such a rare moment. And after a 3.5-hour broadcast, for us to kind of stop time with him and be present in this way, because what is he considering right now? I think, you know, yes, the musical merit of this album and this win, absolutely. But I think what last night and what we're learning and continue to learn is that music cannot or should not exist outside of the political and social realities it's made in. And, you know, Bad Bunny, this album, you know, so what's the context for Bad Bunny? You know, him being a proud Puerto Rican, his relationship to his homeland, to the extent that he had a 31-date residency in Puerto Rico and, you know, brought in hundreds, tens of millions of dollars into their economy. And that is all wrapped up in this album. And at this specific social and political time, to have this person and this man walk up on stage and win it, it is so much bigger than just an album winning an award. And I think that is how we can remember that the Grammys are still relevant in a way, because tying those realities together, it isn't in a vacuum, and it is really, it means
so
a lot.
nicely said.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Is
It was awesome.
Latin album to...
It's the first fully Spanish album to ever win Album of the Year.
Wow.
And now it's like all eyes are going to be on the Super Bowl performance.
Yeah,
Like,
next
so
week.
much
That is next week.
pressure on him.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, and pressure, and I guess it could be unfair in terms of the expectation, but I think he steps into it so gracefully and with such integrity, as we saw last night. Such a balance between the personal and political, which I think makes for the most actual, authentic kind of commentary, right?
So true.
Yeah, that's so great.
Okay, well, we got to talk about Canada representation, and Justin Bieber won over even the harshest critics with his very stripped-down performance of Yukon. It had people talking, for sure.
Literally stripped down.
What did you think of it?
The New York Times actually described it really nicely. It feels like we've been following him from childhood stardom to adulthood, and there have been some bumps in the road, and that he hasn't always had a good time while he's doing it. But last night it felt like they described it as a re-emergence on his own terms and almost like a molting. Quite literally, he was shirtless and shoeless, just with a guitar, a mic, and a loop pedal, and the audience was just sort of waiting with bated breath, like, what's gonna happen? Is this gonna be okay? Is he okay? And then as soon as he gained confidence, the audience did, and it was a memorable, like, beautiful performance. I thought it was like a return to form, or like he was looking inward, I guess.
Outward. There was
on an international
Or
stage.
the other prop on that stage was a mirror, and I felt like that was so poignant, because it was like, is the mirror reflecting him? Is it reflecting us and the way in which we projected onto him? I thought it was so multi-layered.
That's such a good point of our involvement in it too, right? Because I feel like we've watched him, you know, his peaks and ebbs and flows and the struggles he's gone through, and we've played a part in that. So I feel like he's given us so much, and finally comes on stage, literally nothing left to give. He's stripped down and saying, I have my talent, I have my faith, I have my heart and my soul, and like I'm presenting it to you.
I'm gonna say, I'm glad he did do. I thought it was a beautiful performance. I was worried about him on the red carpet. He looked very unhappy. You know, today all the gossip magazines have all the body language experts. What did Justin really feel? He did not crack a smile. He has been through a lot. And yes, we are complicit to a degree in that, but I was still worried about him until he hit the stage. And him coming back, this is the first time he's been at the Grammy since 2022, a self-imposed hiatus. He had to submit his own music. So it's like he is ready, but I'm glad he's just dipping his toe in, but maybe skip the red carpet next time. I think it's still too much for him. I don't think he's fully back yet.
I kind of like it, because usually I remember going to his concert and it was all of the things, the backup dancers, the outfits, all of the, you know, the glitz and glamour. And it felt like, well, and I realize now, we weren't seeing the real him. This is the real him. He does not want to smile for the cameras. That's not how he feels. So he's being authentic. When he performs on stage, he wants to be stripped down. He doesn't want 10 backup dancers who are scantily clad with all of this hype and backflips. He just wants to play the music. And this part of his life makes me feel like I'm seeing the real him for the first time. And he's been around since he was 15. So I don't know. I loved it. It was one of my favorite performances for last night. It was really good.
Very nice.
really
So
good.
the show's peak might have been the In Memoriam segment. Post Malone, Lauryn Hill, and Reba McEntire all performed in honor of artists we lost over last year. Legends like D'Angelo, Roberta Flack, and Ozzy Osbourne. So what struck you most about the tribute?
I'll tell you what, I've always watched the Grammys every single year for as long as I can remember. This is the first time that the In Memoriam performance was my favorite performance of the night.
Wow.
When they did the tribute to D'Angelo, Angie Stone, John Forte, and Roberta Flack, and they had all of those artists led by Lauryn Hill come out one after another singing, you know, Roberta's songs and some of D'Angelo's songs. First of all, I felt like I was at a concert. I forgot that we were talking about people who had passed away. And they did it in a really beautiful way. But then a little part of me was kind of sad where I'm like, there's been a conversation about how R&B music is dying and how the industry is, you know, really not giving it the due the respect that it's due. And so I was watching that kind of going, so what's going to happen? Because if D'Angelo didn't die, we wouldn't have seen any of those artists on stage last night. So where are we going? Where are we going to get that music? How come the industry has forgotten about that music?
And I think that question made last night and current moment of Grammys iteration and reiteration so interesting. Because if you compare, it opened the show with the best new music, best new artist medley.
Yeah.
And if you compare those like largely kind of TikTok spurred breakthroughs to a legacy, a collection of artists, I think that tends to be, as an audience member, you watch it and you either disconnect as a younger generation or you disconnect as an older generation. And I think watching last night's show, what really came across to me was we need it all. Like, we need the thread for all of it, not only to keep that viewership, but it's all relevant and it's all important. And it's easy to, and it's kind of fascinating to kind of trace that trajectory through a 3.5-hour broadcast rather than ousting it. Because it's constantly evolving before eyes. Not to say that you should oust, you know, legacy acts, because you should not, but also not to say you should disregard, you know, somber.
Yeah. I think one of the things that struck me, because we started with Bad Bunny and talking about him and how political his music is, so that you can't really separate music and politics. I got kind of emotional. I was surprised watching Ozzy Osbourne, the tribute to him, because they played a song called War Pigs, which was done in the 70s, around the time of the Vietnam War. It is an anti-war anthem. And if you don't know it, the lyrics are just as relevant today. It talks a lot about how individuals and systems that perpetuate and profit from violence to pay attention. And we've been talking lately, even backstage or around, like, where are the anthems? Where is music being protest songs? So this, to me, was a reminder that it is still happening, but it needs to happen more. And I found that, not to mention just watching his family in the audience, it felt very profound and very important.
Yeah.
Beautiful. True.
Wow. Grammys are back, y'all. Emily, thank you so much for joining us today.